World Health Organization chief expresses concern over Israeli plans to invade Rafah city. Houthis target with missiles a Greek ship cargo in Bab el-Mandab in the Red Sea. On the International Day against the use of child soldiers, Houthis continue to recruit children and send them to war fronts. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English NEWS main Shazad Delbey. The chief of the World Health Organization renewed his demand for a ceasefire in Gaza on Monday. The UN top official voiced concern over Israeli strikes on Rafah, where the majority of the people evacuated, and Israeli bombings in Rafah killed 48 people overnight, according to local health officials. The UN official added that only 15 of Gaza's 36 hospitals were still functioning, and that the humanitarian workers were trying their best in impossible conditions. The Israeli military said it rescued 2 hostages in the Gaza Strip early Monday. The hostages were rescued in a raid on Rafah, where 1.4 million Palestinians have fled to escape the Israeli bombing. Hospital officials in Rafah said that at least 16 Palestinians were killed and 55 were injured in a series of overnight airstrikes, some of which were linked to the hostage rescue. 4 months into an ongoing genocide with over 28,000 Palestinians dead, the released hostages are only the second and third rescued by the occupation. The U.S. President Joe Biden affirmed that civilians in Rafah city should be protected before any military action. In a call with the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Biden said that a military operation in Rafah should not be preceded without a plan for ensuring the safety for more than 1 million people sheltering there. This report has more details.
Biden administration stated that Israel shouldn't go ahead with a military operation in the densely populated Gaza border town of Rafah without a credible plan to protect civilians. And aid agencies mentioned that an assault on Rafah would be catastrophic. Biden's call with Netanyahu came days after the U.S. leader told reporters that Israel's response in the Palestinian enclave of Gaza was over the top. The call also focused on ongoing efforts to secure the release of hostages. Over half of Gaza's population of 2.3 million have fled to Rafah to escape fighting in other areas, and they are packed into sprawling tent camps and UN-run shelters near the border. As it is known, nowhere is safe in Gaza, and there is nowhere left to go, according to the UN humanitarian coordinator for the Palestinian territories. As Israeli troops battle the Palestinian forces in southern Gaza Strip after expanding their offensive deeper into the besieged territory, and even without warnings. Netanyahu mentioned that there is plenty of room north of Rafah for them to go to after Israel's offensive elsewhere in Gaza, and said the Israeli occupation planned to direct evacuees with flyers, with cell phones, and with safe corridors and other things. The war has sparked fears of a wider regional conflict, with frequent exchange of fires. In a statement, the Israeli government threatened that the truce agreement wouldn't mean the end of the war in Gaza, and they would continue the war in order to complete the elimination of the Palestinian resistance and ensure that there would be no new resistance in Gaza.
United Nations envoy to Yemen Hans Grunberg arrived in Taiz. Grunberg met with the local authority in the city and members of negotiating team in the peace talks with the Houthis. The discussion touched on the latest efforts to revive the political process amid the Houthi escalation and the worsening humanitarian crisis. Grunberg's visit is considered an important step to help end the conflict in the country. A Greek ship was targeted by 2 missiles in the critical Bab el-Mandeb, the latest strike suspected to be carried out by Yemen's Iran-backed Houthis. No one was injured and the ship continued on its way, according to the British Military Strait Operations Center. It was unclear how much damage had been done to the ship. U.S. Central Command forces launched attacks on 2 drones and 3 anti-ship cruise missiles north of the city of Hodeidah. The forces attributed these vehicles and missiles to the Houthis and determined that they represented a danger to the U.S. Navy ships and commercial vessels in the region. Forces added that these measures are going to protect freedom of navigation and make international waters safer for the U.S. Navy and commercial ships. President Ismail Omar, the Djibouti president, stressed that his country is closely following the recent developments in Bab el-Mandeb and the Gulf of Aden. The president affirmed his eagerness to secure the Red Sea and remove obstacles to international trade. He highlighted the importance of cooperation with major powers to protect maritime navigation, fight terrorism, and confront the security risks troubling the region. Emissions from shipping containers, car carriers, and bulk vessels diverting from the Red Sea are expected to rise by 70%. Ship workers have increased their speed to compensate for the longer route around the Cape of Good Hope route. The ships had to reroute due to attacks carried out by the Houthis against ships related to Israel. Since November, most companies have chosen to sail longer routes, which typically take between 10 days and 2 weeks from Asia to Europe. The U.S. on Saturday carried out strikes against Houthi targets in Yemen, according to the U.S. Central Command. These actions are going to protect freedom of navigation and make international waters safer and more secure for the U.S. Navy and merchant vessels. This report has more details.
U.S. forces late Saturday kicked off a 4-day flurry of airstrikes against Houthi rebels in Yemen, targeting Houthi anti-ship missiles, ground vehicles, and other weapons and material the group has used to wreak chaos on commercial shipping in and around the Red Sea. U.S. Central Command said that it hit Houthi positions on 4 straight days, marking one of the most intense periods of strikes on the Houthis since the American counterattack campaign began a month ago. On Wednesday, CENTCOM said it struck multiple Houthi anti-ship cruise missiles and Houthi mobile land attack cruise missiles, each of which was preparing to launch against ships in the Red Sea. CENTCOM identified these missiles in the Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen and determined they presented an imminent threat to U.S. Navy ships and merchant vessels in the region. These actions will protect freedom of navigation and make international waters safer and more secure for U.S. Navy and merchant vessels. A day later, CENTCOM launched at least 7 separate strikes against Houthi targets. And late Saturday, CENTCOM said it took out Houthi surface vessels and anti-ship missiles just before they were launched towards ships sailing through the Red Sea. The Houthis have launched about 40 attacks on commercial and military ships over the past several months. Houthi leaders have said their campaign is retaliation toward Israel for its war in the Gaza Strip, though many of the ships targeted seemingly have no connection to Jerusalem. The U.S. and Britain responded to those attacks on January 11 with the first round of strikes on Houthi positions in Yemen, where the Iran-backed rebel group controls much of the country, including the capital Sana'a. The ongoing airstrikes are representing a threat not only to Yemen's economy, but to the world's economy.
The International Committee of the Red Cross called on donor countries to continue funding life-saving operations in Yemen. The Red Cross stressed that the world must not forget the impoverished Arab nation, adding that Yemen is still facing a state of increasing insecurity amid the lack of donor response to provide humanitarian support. In Yemen, more than 5 million Yemenis are on the brink of famine after 9 years of civil war. On the International Day against the use of child soldiers, the Houthi militia continues to use the children, pushing them to battlefronts and brainwashing them with sectarian ideologies. This report has more details.
On the International Day to combat child recruitment, childhood in Yemen faces serious challenges as a result of the Houthi militia's exploitation of children, recruiting them and sending them on the fighting fronts. Throughout the years of the war in Yemen, the Houthi militia did not stop taking advantage of the hard living conditions and the suffering of children. The Houthis destroyed their future through recruitment, either by forcing them or through material temptations.
اليوم 12 والذي يصادف
Today, the 12th of February, marks the International Day to combat children recruitment. The rebel Houthi militia has always been known for recruiting children and violating their rights. Since they took over the capital Sana'a, they depended on children to fight their war against the Yemeni citizens.
In the context of the current events in Gaza, the Houthi militia's practices emerged in exploiting feelings of solidarity and sympathy with the Palestinian people to recruit them, open camps, and teach them sectarian courses aimed at brainwashing them and facilitating their recruitment on the battlefronts without awareness of the dangers that await their childhood.
ميليشيا الحوثي الإرهابية لا تقيم أي اعتبار للقانون.
The terrorist Houthi militia is ignoring all international laws and humanitarian rights of children. If you looked at the soldiers recruited by the rebel militia, you will see that the majority of them are children. They kidnap them from streets and schools, brainwash. After recruitment, they send them directly to the battlefronts to fight with them.
According to UN reports, child recruitment in Yemen constitutes one of the greatest dangers facing childhood, and the Houthi militia tops the list of the parties that exploited children in their war on the Yemenis, and are still gathering thousands of children into their camps, which constitutes a threat for the future of an entire generation, and requires urgent intervention from the international community and international organizations to stop the Houthi militia's exploitation of children in Yemen.
Coming next in the news. Houthi planted mines continue to claim civilians' lives in Yemen. Welcome back. The King Salman Humanitarian Aid and Relief Center's Massam project dismantled more than 700 mines across Yemen in the first week of February. The project is committed to clearing Yemeni lands of mines that have resulted in the loss of innocent lives. This report has more details.
Massam Project, the Saudi initiative dedicated to clear landmines in Yemen, dismantled 784 mines in various regions of Yemen in the first week of February 2024. These include 3 anti-personnel mines, 129 anti-tank mines, 623 unexploded ordnance, and 29 explosive devices. This brings the total number of dismantled mines since the start of the project to 431,838 mines. The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, represented by KS Relief Center, is committed to clearing Yemeni lands of all mines that have tragically resulted in the loss of lives and injuries to innocent children, women, and elders. The explosives, which were planted indiscriminately by the Houthis across Yemen, posed a significant threat to the lives of people. Project Massam is one of several initiatives undertaken by Saudi Arabia on the orders of King Salman to help the Yemeni people, clearing routes for humanitarian aid to reach the country's citizens. The demining operations took place in Ma'rib, Aden, Jawf, Shabwa, Taiz, Hodeidah, Lahj, Sana'a, El Bayda, El Dala, and Sada. The project trains local demining engineers and provides them with modern equipment. It also offers support to Yemenis injured by the devices. More than 5 million people are estimated to have been forced to flee their homes since the beginning of the conflict in Yemen, many of them displaced by the presence of landmines on their land. Massam teams are tasked with clearing areas such as villages, roads, and schools to facilitate the safe movement of civilians and the delivery of humanitarian goods and services.
13 people were injured in car accidents in the freed Yemeni provinces in the past 24 hours. According to the General Administration of Traffic Police, 9 traffic incidents happened across the liberated governorates, including 6 vehicle crashes. The authorities attributed this to speeding and failure to adhere to traffic laws. A recent UN report revealed that more than 1,000 African migrants arrived in Yemen in January. The IOM explained that the Somali and Djibouti migrants enter Yemen mostly through the coast of Shabwa Governorate. Yemen is a destination for migrants from the Horn of Africa, especially Ethiopia and Somalia, who continue their long journey to Gulf nations in hopes of improving their living conditions. Yemeni human rights activist and head of the Insaf Center for Rights and Development, Iman Humaid, has won the Maranian Award, which includes 15 influential international activists chosen annually by the French Foreign Ministry. This honor qualifies her to benefit from qualification programs and to meet with high-ranking French and European leaders. The oil company in Hadramaut approved a new increase in gasoline prices amid widespread dissatisfaction among citizens. People are demanding a reduction in the prices of petroleum and urgent economic reforms to save the local currency and improve living conditions. According to local media, the company raised the selling price of 1 liter of gasoline from approximately 25,000 rials to more than 26,000 rials for a 20-liter can at 1,340 rials per liter. A Yemeni immigrant who holds a U.S. citizenship was killed last night by gunmen in a robbery in Tennessee in the U.S. The Yemeni-American Faris Shihab was shot dead by gunmen who tried to rob the store where he worked. Sources indicated that the gunmen fired at the victim before fleeing. They pointed out that the city police arrived at the scene and launched an investigation into the incident amid appeals from the Yemeni community to arrest the criminals. Here's a reminder of the main headlines. World Health Organization chief expresses concern over Israeli plans to invade Rafah city. Houthis target with missiles a Greek ship cargo in Bab el-Mandeb in the Red Sea. On the International Day Against the Use of Child Soldiers, Houthis continue to recruit children and send them to war fronts. This is the end of the news. Thank you for watching.